Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MNCAA podcast, Gophers Edition. This is episode 129. We're coming to you now. Also, should say Nate Wells here, along with Drew Cove, recording once again after another weekend of Gophers hockey. A very exciting weekend. Exciting is definitely the term. Not. I shouldn't say positive isn't the best word, but the Gophers played the Alaska Fairbanks Nanooks. I've heard a lot of people from Fairbanks saying Nanooks, so I'm going to go with that. But um, definitely ended not the way I think a lot of Gophers fans were thinking it had the chance to, or at least me as well. The Gophers ended up tying 1-1, losing in the shootout. Who could have guessed that, losing in the shootout? Gophers and losing in the shootout goes together like peanut butter and jelly. But also, and then the Gophers came back Saturday again. We'll talk about it. Gave up the first goal, but turned on the Jets in the third period and won 5-2. So a win and a tie on the weekend against a non-conference opponent that's independent, that's looking to get every last bit that they can in the rankings, pairwise rankings. Eventually, later in the season, that these types of games against the blue bloods, so to speak, are going to really help them in the future if they wanted to make the tournament at the end of the season without a conference affiliation or conference trophy. But Nate, let's just jump in. What did you make of this non-conference weekend against Alaska, and kind of seeing some flaws in Minnesota's game early on and both?
In true Thanksgiving weekend fashion, I felt a little sluggish at first, just like maybe ate a little bit too much turkey. Gophers both nights, and what has really been a pattern lately, just start off slow, give up a goal, put themselves in that 1-0 hole, and have to come back from it, which at this point, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and we're going to see it be tested a lot in the next 2 weekends, where Minnesota is very comfortable trailing and being able to come back, as really they showed on Friday and at the end of the second period at Saturday, just rolling off 4 straight goals to take the win on Saturday. But at the same time, Alaska is a very difficult team to play. They have given a lot of top teams troubles in recent seasons. Mm-hmm. And we saw exactly why that's been the case for some of these for Alaska, where they 2 seasons ago were very close to making the tournament as an independent. Last season, they were very high up there. I think of the independents, they are certainly them and LIU are looking to be the cream of the crop right now. But as far as Minnesota goes, it certainly has to be a relief and a disappointment where you're ending kind of your first third of the season going through a schedule of teams that are on the lower end, where you have to be happy being 13-2-1, but certainly as you turn the page and the first half with the 2 big series, playing Michigan at home, playing Michigan State, there's certainly going to be tests. We're going to see how much of what they've learned during these first 16 games of the season to show against 2 of the top 5 teams in the country.
Yeah, and especially before we get to that later in the show, you just like you mentioned, you want to bank those wins against the teams that are certainly less hyped or less expectations. So let's say on them as Alaska does, and you kind of wanted to be 14-2-0 heading into this gauntlet here near the end of the first half. But yeah, it was definitely a tough team to play against. They have a goalie that looks like they can get close to goaling you like every game. And I think Grabko did a great job of that. He was spot on. I think most of the weekend series. I mean, I think obviously 5 of the 6 periods he played, he was spot on. And it was really tough to see a lot of the Gophers' chances, because they did generate a lot of chances. I mean, and they did have a lot of scoring chances, a lot of type grade A chances in the first few periods, especially even Saturday when they couldn't really solve it too much. And he just was there to meet the task. But I mean, the aggressiveness from Alaska's forwards and defenders, I thought was really just a tough task that the Gophers are going to have to learn how to play against and as the season goes on, because they were they just really brought it to him. They didn't give him a lot of space to work with, and you had to be really shifty. And another reason why I think we'll talk about it later when we talk about the entire roster individually by name. Oliver Moore, he played. I thought he had a really good weekend because he found those shifty spots, and I was kind of thinking of those European highlights of Mikhail Granlund before he came over to the U.S., where he kind of his shoulder, your shoulders are just kind of bouncing and you're skating in the neutral zone, and that type of thing makes me think of him. And Oliver Moore had that in a few different instances. Even when he was creating good things, and you kind of saw it. It's like, okay, he's revving up, and then boom, he goes down, scores a goal. I thought he had a tremendous weekend just from his speed. And being able to create space against a team that didn't allow very much of it. But I thought he had a really good weekend in a weekend where we definitely thought that the Gophers were going to be might have been without some other top talent that he might have needed to take over for. But thankfully they were at least the Gophers had two big name guys back this weekend. Nate.
Yeah, Cal Thomas coming back to lineup, a welcome return. Certainly a player that you notice a lot more when he's absent than he is on the ice. And of course, the demise of Brody Lamb is a little bit overstated. It would not have surprised me. I don't think it would surprise anyone if you found out on Monday or Tuesday this week that he was out for the season after taking that knee-on-knee hit last weekend at Notre Dame. Instead, he comes back. He might have been the savior of Minnesota's fortunes for this weekend, turning up and getting a shorthanded goal in the opening shift of the third period. That just certainly turned the tide on Saturday for the Gophers. And I'll throw this one out to you, Drew. So you certainly, Brody Lamb's back up to his old names, his own style that he's been for this season. Oliver Moore, that's 3 straight weekends. I think we've been singing his praises. Certainly seems like he's understanding the space, he's understanding how to use it so much better at this point of the year, even compared to the second half of last year. And certainly the first half of his freshman season, he's making those games that you want to see. But as far as things are going, I mean, hitting that second period intermission, that second intermission on Saturday, where were you feeling? Was that kind of just the first question mark that you had with Minnesota this season, down 2-1, having to kill a penalty?
I mean, especially after seeing it happen Friday night, it certainly to me, I was like, boy, this weekend could go get away from them very fast, because I think the tie obviously isn't the end of the world, and the shootout really means nothing.
It's a whose line shootout. Like it's literally, it's for the audience. The points don't matter.
Yep, exactly.
No one does.
So it just kind of seeing that was a little disappointing at the end, and to say, okay, yeah, they couldn't even get the little moral boost into the next game, and they give up the first goal again. And just after seeing that, I was like, you know what, that's 4 straight games with early goals against. I mean, they happened in both games against Notre Dame. It didn't hurt them there, but it certainly could have, and it hurt them on Friday. I mean, you needed to keep it. Obviously, I don't think. Nathan Airy played Friday. You let in 1 goal. That's perfect within expectations of what your team needs of you. Then this Gophers team being the highest scoring in the nation, I think they're averaging 4.3 goals. My stat might be a week old or something like that, but the highest scoring team in the country, one of the best power plays in the country. You expect them to score more than just 1 goal. So certainly no fault of the goalie for giving it up early. It's just that it happened early, and they fell behind and had to chase against a team that is built like those traditional Notre Dame teams that we've seen that are really hard to play against. And like you fall behind, like we always say, it's like you go to Notre Dame and you fall behind early. Good luck coming back. But this Gophers team has shown time and again that they are able to do that. But after Friday's game, when they couldn't, I was worried too. After 2 periods that were kind of lackluster in just the ability to generate a lot of high danger chances and a lot of movement. I know because like there were a lot of shots getting in, but they didn't look like ones that were really threatening to make that much of a damage or put a dent into the 2-1 lead. And especially with that penalty, it said, okay, you're going to start off kind of flat-footed in your own zone. Is it going to be able to change? And Brody Lamb and Aaron Huglin absolutely changed that. And I thought their energy on the penalty kill, I think the goal was still credited to Brody Lamb, even though I think Huglin whipped the shot right in on the net, and it just happened to catch the defender of Alaska there. So it kind of counts as last man who touched it. But I thought their energy and their ability to kind of be in there and be aggressive and kind of take the Alaska the Alaska prototype of their game, and throw it right back at them. And I thought they were in the third period, it completely changed. That was the one, I think, really dominant period of hockey I think the Gophers played this weekend. I don't know about you. I certainly think so, but it really kind of made up for some of the things that they weren't able to do in the first half of the game, where most of the team kind of jumped on as we're singing Oliver Moore's praises. I thought they kind of caught up to his level of kind of elusiveness and aggressiveness in that third period to kind of close it out, because just seeing the power plays that finally came and the movement and the pucks kind of just being in a lot of different places and making the Alaska defenders just move back and forth really tired them out. And a lot of, even times it was 5-on-5 and they were strung out there for so long. And they had done that in Friday's game too, but weren't able to capitalize. But I think certainly they made up for those I guess shortcomings in the early part of the game to escape the weekend at least with one win.
Yeah, which was certainly needed. It's a big difference to go with a win and a tie versus a tie and a loss or two ties. Mm-hmm. If you're the Gophers, and just being able to see, hey, you can turn on the Jets, you can start to put that pedal down and put a game out of reach, which is something we really haven't seen since maybe the first period of the Bemidji game a couple of Thursdays ago. Because I think you're right. Yeah, it's now 5 straight games where they're giving up that like really early first goal. Because the Bemidji one, it was like opening shift, a few minutes later, down 2-0, and that was it. And yes. Yeah, so it keeps happening, and as successful as Minnesota's been, because that's 3-1-1 in five games where they've been able to come back from a 1-0 deficit. I think you throw in the Wisconsin ones too, and the St. Thomas ones, and like they can never be counted out of a game. But I think for us, and I'm sure if you're Bob Motzko, and I'm sure if you're the players in the locker room, you kind of want to see big, hey, can we take control of the game early? Can we put it back out of reach? Can we have that full 60 minutes where we're putting the other team on the back heels and they're the ones chasing? You're Minnesota, you're getting the shots, you're getting possession, you're creating opportunities and power plays, but it's certainly at the moment it's been less of a consistent effort and more of in spurts. So there's certainly there's room to grow, there's room to be happy, there's room to nip, point, and critique, which I think if you're Minnesota right now at Thanksgiving, you're thankful for being 13-2-1 against a mostly non-conference schedule. You're thankful for the tests that you faced, and you're thankful that there's certainly room to grow. And I think, as I mentioned last week, you can see where things can look up. So there's certainly things to be thankful for on that aspect.
Yeah, no, and I was looking for the stat too. A friend of the show, Eric Figo, found his stat was 8 times on the season, not just 5 in a row, but 8 times on the season, the Gophers have given up the first goal. And especially when you're able to come out of that 13-2-1, that's just a credit to the other stats that we were already talking about, the highest scoring team in college hockey, dominant power play, a lot of elite offensive talent showing. I mean, Connor Kurth being a force, Jimmy Clark being a force, Brody Lamb being your leading
Brody Lamb having double-digit goals and at Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
I don't, as much as we think highly of Brody Lamb, I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card.
Exactly. It's the thing I've been clamoring for 2 years. I just feel like, all right, this guy has what it takes to finally be one of the dominant players on this team, and we're not even to the halfway point. He's on track to hopefully get to 20 goals, which would be great to see. But I think it just shows that this team is able to overcome that. But let's see if they can kind of, take advantage and be right at the start of the game and don't give up that goal, even if it takes them a while to score. Get that first goal and get the lead early and kind of just let it settle in from there. And it'll be interesting to see if they can do that come second half, because that'll be so important with a team that already is so dominant by giving up the first goal 8 times out of 16 games. That's not necessarily like a long-term recipe for success against, like we're going to talk about again in a little bit, Michigan State and Michigan. It's going to be a lot tougher if you give up the first goal against those teams with the ones that can keep your pace and scoring wise.
The level of competition is only going up right now. And for Minnesota's aspirations, it's certainly something that, yes, it's been nitpicked a little bit, but it was certainly something that they have room to change with 5 straight times where we've seen the same story happening over and over again. But at the same time, hey, you also have had two goalies who are certainly not only just playing to keep Minnesota in games, are able to win games. I mean, your second goalie is, I believe, undefeated at this point, still in the season with Soulier, and it certainly seems that Bob is getting more and more confidence in Erie, and it's certainly there's a lot of positives to take away, even as we nitpick on some of these aspects. But look, if everything was gravy, I'm just going to start singing in as much Thanksgiving talk as it is. You can obviously tell it's still on my mind.
Yeah,
but if everything was gravy, it would be just it'd be a boring podcast to talk about.
Exactly. Nate, you mentioned the goalies, and I thought that's one thing that slipped under the radar in the comeback on, I guess, the comeback. They came back from 2 1-goal deficits on Saturday, but the guy that kept him in it, Liam Soulier, I think he played fantastically down the stretch. Just because, I mean, he made a couple of saves, especially that kick save where it was really just the end of his skate, where he was so far left and he pushed to the right, and he just got enough of his skate in the way of a pretty gaping net. And that certainly, those types of saves, it's really good to see that the Gophers have some goalies that are capable of making those saves, because especially I think, and this is not against Erie in terms of the way he plays. I just think he's so big and so positionally sound. He doesn't get caught in places where he shouldn't be to make a miraculous save, so to speak, very often. And I think he really is very calm and collected. And I think with a guy that's, I think a little bit smaller than him in Soulier, sometimes he just doesn't take up as much room, and he has to make up for it with his athleticism. And he's absolutely done that so far. And I think the Gophers have gotten all they've wanted and more out of Soulier so far, to provide that secondary backstop and not to really run Erie into the ground, or to push him a little too hard into too many consecutive games and consecutive weekends. But man, Soulier and Erie, I think another chance of them playing the platoon this weekend. I thought they both looked really, really good.
You cannot complain about either performance as much as we might be complaining, but at the same time, yeah, I think you hit on something nice with Erie. He is able to develop at his own pace and be pushed in ways that are very beneficial for the Gophers and for his own development, as opposed to I'm sure it's kind of a lesson from having to bring in Justin Close, literally basically just out of nowhere after LaFontaine signed in the middle of the season. But it's just really nice. It's really been nice to see Erie basically take on every test that he's been faced and find success. You mentioned this. He's calm, collected. He's right. He makes saves easy, which is really what you want from a goalie. And Soulier is there to get in and just keep the Gophers in the game. And again, undefeated right now in college hockey as we hit December. Not an easy feat to do. I'm sure there are not too many goalies who've probably played more than 5 games who you can say that about.
Yeah, that's true. And Nate, before we put a bow, as we put a bow on this last series here, I know we mentioned it a little bit in past weeks too, what the blueprint to beating Minnesota is. And obviously we don't have a ton of examples of those so far this year. But we kind of put that little note, that little asterisk on Friday saying, is this part of the blueprint? Is having a goalie play out of his mind, stop a bunch of shots, be aggressive defensively, and kind of limit their time and space? Is that the complete blueprint? What do you think from what we've seen so far, and Minnesota kind of stumbling this weekend and almost seeing kind of disaster, falling behind to Alaska in both games and maintaining a deficit into the third period of Saturday's game? Is that kind of the recipe that teams are going to need to try and implement again, as we bring this up again and again every week to see, all right, is there kind of a formula? Is there a blueprint to beating Minnesota?
It feels like this might be the blueprint, especially if you're a team who is going to acknowledge that you do not have the same offensive capabilities as the Gophers, where you need to be aggressive, pick your chances, play defensive, sound hockey, limit Minnesota to the outside, acknowledge that you are going to give up the shot opportunities left and right. I believe every game Minnesota's had the control of the shot advantage and the shot opportunities. And this was the case this weekend too. where outside of a couple 10-minute stretches, it was pretty much the Gophers were the ones possessions. Gophers were the ones who were creating shot opportunities, and also rely on your goalie to either not just goalie a game and win it for you, but just keep it in and make the saves that are need to. It needs to be a sound performance. Limit penalties. Limit Gophers' opportunities to create odd man rushes, and just when you have a couple of those mistakes, which happen in every game, take advantage. Be the ones who own those opportunities. And for me, that's the way to do it. I'm really curious to see if there's going to be how your Michigan State end up placing the Gophers, because if they're looking across, they're like, we can match up Minnesota offensively. Maybe we can try a different style. Is this something to do, or are you basically throwing back on what we've seen appears several teams try to do, where it's let's not place the Gophers head on offensively. Let's try to beat them on the counter. Let's try to be physical. Let's try to beat them with sound defensive hockey.
Yeah, and while I certainly think, I know teeing up that question kind of led me to exactly where you went with it, is that, that is the blueprint for, I think, a majority of teams in college hockey. But with the teams that can match the offensive talent level, i.e. Michigan State and Michigan, 2 upcoming weekends, I don't know if that blueprint is totally applicable, but we'll see what they can do from their offensive firepower standpoint and say, okay, if that doesn't work, they have a kind of a backup plan if they can execute it properly. And that's the exact thing. It's like it just comes down to execution. If you can get your defenders to play that way and to fully engage the Minnesota offense at that point of aggressiveness that we've seen in the games where Minnesota stumbled, that's how you make it happen. But Nate, as we move around the conference before we get to next steps in the coming weeks here, we'll just kind of take a look around what the Big Ten did. I believe there weren't any conference matchups for the Big Ten this week. Let's start with the Gophers' last conference opponent, Notre Dame. They went over to Belfast, Ireland, and played against some Ivy League schools, but played against Harvard. They beat them, and then they lost to BU the next day. I think I think it was a little four tournament classic.
The Friendship Four, which is
Friendship Four, yes.
The French, yeah. So Notre Dame fittingly was the first kind of non-Northeast school to be out there. But I mean, come on, you have to have the Irish in Ireland. It's like I can't believe it took this long for it to happen.
Yeah, the football team played out there sooner than that. So against Northwestern, I believe, a few years ago out there. But kind of moving back over to this side of the Atlantic, Ohio State swept by another Ivy League school, Princeton, 3-1 losses. Nate, and it might have eluded me, and maybe I wasn't looking at the rankings as much so far early this season. It just completely missed my brain that Ohio State was ranked number 12. And they got swept by Princeton this weekend.
Yeah, they will be dropping hard when those rankings come out. Hobie Baker Rink is a really fun rink, honestly. I've been lucky to go there. It's old school. It's probably one of the coldest places on earth. And look, we're Minnesotans talking about that, so we know cold. But I did not expect Ohio State to get swept by Princeton. It's a team that has certainly struggled. I believe, I would say, new coach this year, longtime Cornell assistant, taking over the Tigers. So, I mean, that's a big statement for their aspirations, where they're coming from, as you leave a new mark for Princeton. But, I mean, Ohio State's made their bread and butter this year by beating the teams that they should be beating. And this came to an end. It came to an end this weekend in New Jersey.
Yeah, not a great showing from Ohio State. We'll see what that means for the rest of Big Ten play as well. Another team that did identical to what Minnesota did this weekend, play in Alaska school. Wisconsin beat Anchorage 7-1 on Friday, and then they tied overtime Saturday. Almost a flip of what the Gophers did with Fairbanks. Definitely good to see Wisconsin again get more goals. But yeah, it's not great on the tying front as well. Still kind of understanding what we can make of Wisconsin this year.
It feels very fitting for a good microcosm of the Badger season, where there's a lot of disappointment, but also you're seeing when they score in goals, they are a very tough team. When they find the back of the net, I think they're almost if you can get the 3 goals, watch out for the Badgers, but it's almost a very tough case to see them get to 3 right now. I want to throw this out to you, Drew. So Minnesota played Alaska, Wisconsin played Alaska Fairbanks, and this is Thanksgiving weekend. Does this count as a college hockey showcase?
Boy, if we could get it all in one rink, I think that'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a nice way to just kind of play around, get like Friday afternoon. Like, who's working on Friday after Thanksgiving anyways? Just start some early games, like have an afternoon game, and let's just put it all in one rink and see what happens. Just get everyone there. Maybe that could work with St. Thomas and Minnesota in the future, and not Wisconsin. Maybe Minnesota and St. Thomas, and then bring both the Alaska schools down. That would be a pretty fun showcase.
Maybe there's your North Star College Cup Commissioner Wells here. Maybe that's your in way for bringing back the trophy in the tournament.
Dust it off, take it out of the closet, and ship it back to Minnesota. There we go. Because it's under lock and key.
Duluth, you got killed. You got killed this year. Bring it back down the cities.
Exactly. No, that's Nate's throwing it off the scent that it's not in his bedroom closet right now. Just kind of sitting there.
No.
One shiny light. No.
Yeah.
Gosh. Moving on to the rest of the Big Ten. Minnesota's an upcoming opponent from Minnesota. Michigan State. They beat Lindenwood Friday, but as of the recording of this podcast, they have not yet played their series finale. They're playing this Sunday afternoon against Lindenwood. I would fully expect a sweep to be in place, but not too much to glean from a big win against Lindenwood for a team that we expected to beat Lindenwood big.
Yeah, and credit to the Spartans because they're doing the thing right now. And as you look at the rest of the Big Ten, Thanksgiving weekend has not been the easiest thing to do. Of course, now that we say that, watch Lindenwood go ahead and win on Sunday. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, and that's just the luck of this podcast sometimes too, right? But considering, let's take a look at a little outside the conference, but within the scope of the MNCAA podcast, our friends over at the Bemidji episode, Bemidji State beat North Dakota 2-1 and then tied 3-3 Saturday. That's certainly not the result that Fighting Hawks fans would have wanted, but definitely a good showing by the Beavers to keep it scrappy with again a lot of these expected to be top teams in the country.
These results are really going to help Bemidji State. Just between Bemidji State and Mankato, there are certainly some good results in non-conference play for the CCHA. I was going to say against the NCHC there, but it's and the Big Ten as well. But it's going to help them come later in the year, where those results will certainly lift them up, and hopefully they'll lift up the rest of the conference. Last season was pretty much at this point of the year we could look around and be like, this is a one bid league. I still would probably lean towards it being a one bid league with how it's going, but if you're one of those two teams that can go on a run, you are certainly able to position yourself to get that at large, which will be very helpful given the unpredictability and the craziness that is any conference tournament.
Yeah, you gotta love it, and especially a team that is known to have some chaos, I guess, in the conference tournament with Minnesota. Our last team, Penn State, not in action this weekend, but Michigan.
No. Actually, no. Penn State did play this week. They played Tuesday, Wednesday. It's like technically they did. They swept Colgate, which is good for the. Which is good for the Nittany Lions. They kind of needed it after coming off of a couple tough series and Big Ten play. I mean, it was goals were plenty again. After that Michigan series, I think they did something like 6 games in 13 days. So they deserve the rest. But that is
that always falls off my radar too. In Penn State plays, like they play Ohio State next week, midweek. So it's Thursday, I think, and it's going to be it's just always those midweek games always throw me off. But coming to the Gophers' next opponent, Michigan. They split with Western Michigan, lost 4-1 Friday and 1-2 on Saturday. And Nate, I'm just the most surprised that they even played the games.
Yay, props. They did the thing. They actually played it.
They actually played Western Michigan.
They played them twice. Like they didn't stop. They didn't decide to stop.
They didn't take their puck and go home.
Yeah. But I mean, I think I'm actually really impressed with Western this year. They've had some tough non-conference series as well, and they've looked good. And really, the job they keep doing, where they turn over their top lines, they're developing, they're bringing in people in the transfer portal. This almost feels like this might be that year where they kind of turn the corner, where they're able to get that the NCAA win and kind of move forward from the second round into the Frozen Four, or just kind of be a big challenge. So, I mean, with Michigan, yeah, it was nice to see they're able to get back and get the win on Saturday. But both of these games, again, it feels like the Wolverines, more than anything, are really comfortable kind of playing some of these low-scoring games. We can't say that's been the case the last few years with the Wolverines. Leading back to how this weekend will go with the Gophers and the Wolverines. You can see, honestly, I would not be shocked at any combination of any score at this point, where both teams have the offensive firepower to put up 6, 7, 8. I mean, Michigan, I scored 10 against Penn State last weekend. Neither team would be surprised in that one. I also wouldn't be surprised to see a pair of 1-0 games where there's the defensive on there. So, I mean, you want to give yourself as many opportunities as possible to win games, and styles make games. And we're going to learn a lot about both teams this weekend. I'm really excited about this series.
Yeah, and especially with I think the way that Minnesota's goalies have been playing, we've been talking about it, and the defense is kind of coming into its own here. I think I would not be surprised if either team could lock down a defensive game, and just the next goal, like almost just one goal, next goal wins. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how these two teams match up, because this definitely is Minnesota's highest offensive power opponent so far this season, and we're 16 games in. That's we're really kind of meeting the biggest part of the strength of schedule that this Gophers team has 2 weekends in a row, with both both Big Ten Michigan schools. But Michigan at home against at Mariucci against Minnesota here is going to be some must-watch hockey, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Minnesota can do against a team that is expected, as we keep saying all over and over and over again, but a team that we're really expecting to be one of the top cream of the crop conference teams, but also nationally as well. Especially, it'll be good to get this Michigan game, I think, this Michigan series in before the Michigan State series, because they have been obviously one of the top 5 teams consistently throughout so far this season.
This weekend and next weekend are almost just parts 2 of maybe 4 or 5 for the season, where everything that Minnesota has done leads up to this, and we're going to learn from the lessons of the first 16 games, where we know where Minnesota's been, we know where they can improve. We're going to see everything from that, how it goes against 2 top teams, and you get that opportunity to recalibrate, adjust, especially with having the break happen right after, and you go right back into you go back and you play Mercyhurst. And I mean, those actually might be the 2 biggest must wins of the season, just with Mercer. We won't drop the P word just quite yet. I think you can start to kind of look into it and kind of gauge things, but Mercyhurst is certainly one of, if not the worst team in college hockey this season. Mm-hmm. So after that, you go all Big Ten play, and you're able to make those adjustments and see how things are going, and then make that last final stretch into the postseason.
Yeah, it'll be great to see. We'll be here with you to talk about it all, to recap, to preview everything going forward, and also just to tease if we have a couple of fun episode ideas for the lull, I guess, of games in the month of December. So we'll be sure to stay tuned with that. But first of all, Michigan, 2 games at Mariucci. Fox Sports 1, 7 p.m. Friday. That's the TV, always on the radio. But Fox 9 Plus and Big Ten Plus Saturday. Also early start time, 5 p.m., just like this past weekend. I think they're trying to do that for a lot of their Saturday games this year, has had that earlier start time. So be sure, if you got tickets to go to the game, be sure you're ready to make the trek down to Mariucci for that early start to see what should be a very exciting game against Michigan. But until next week, that for Nate and I, we'll see you at the rink.